May I have your attention, please?
Welcome to Real Gaijin, unveiling the real Japan, an American expat's inside look. Now it's time for another story from the Read My Lips series of podcasts. Summarized Podcast.
This is Mark Kennedy. I'm the host of the Real Gaijin podcast. Today we've got a special guest, James Douglas, who is an accomplished writer. He's a horror movie screenwriter, and he cleans train stations in Japan on purpose. James, do you want to say hello?
Yeah, hello. Like our host said, my name's James C. Douglas. Shall I introduce myself a little bit?
Sure. Go for it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I was born in the UK and I came to Japan in about 2004. When I came, I was partway through a PhD. And I thought, well, I'll take a break from that and come to Japan because I'd started learning Japanese as a hobby. And I came and I got a job in an English teaching school at the time. And I sort of slowly got a bit better at Japanese. And then 1 year turned into 2 years, 2 years turned into 4 years. And then I got married, which, unfortunately didn't work out. But during that time, I got a spousal visa and permanent residence. And I just found I got more and more used to being here. And that going home just seemed less and less of an attractive prospect. Yeah.
Got it. Well, you covered a lot of ground there in about 30 seconds. So thank you very much. Hey, before we get started, though, I want to dig into more of your background in just a second. I wanted to remind everyone that the purpose for these interviews with other quote-unquote real gaijin, gaijin, by the way, means foreigner, or gaikokujin would be the more formal term for it. But essentially, there are now, believe it or not, something like 3.7 million of us living in Japan, which is a lot. That's almost 3% of the population, the entire country of Japan. And we're starting to make a real impact. People come from all over the world to live here. I'm from the United States. James is from the UK, but we have other guests on the program from other different countries. And what really strikes me is that you can do anything here and make it work. And today we have literally a living example of someone who is doing just that, James. Also, one piece of housekeeping, we will be making a recording of today's video just in case you missed the live presentation. Of course, the benefit of being live is you can ask questions. So please go ahead and put a question in the chat if you're available. All right, James. So let's wind back a little bit to the UK here. Where are you from in the UK?
Bedford.
Okay, where's that? I don't know.
It's not too well known, but it's about, I would say, 50 miles north of London. It's a place called the Midlands in the UK.
Very pretty.
So it's a small country town, maybe about 80,000 people.
Oh, yeah. Terrific. And so now, what sparked your interest in Japan?
Well, it's a bit of a frivolous reason, but some of my friends were learning French and Spanish and so on, and I thought it's quite cool to be able to speak a second language. And I would pick one, and I went to a bookshop, and more or less on impulse, I started flicking through all the books, and I just saw the Japanese one. It looked kind of cool. It looked like the grammar was very alien to English, and it just seemed that it would be a big challenge to learn. And I sort of idly started flipping through it after I bought it, and then I got more and more into it. I became fascinated with the language and how different it was from English. And that led me to reading about the culture. And I thought, well, I'll just go for a year and see what it's like, teach English. And and that sort of segues into my self-introduction a moment ago.
And so when you first arrived in Japan, were you living in Tokyo?
I lived in Gifu Prefecture.
Oh, okay.
In a small town called Kakamigahara, which isn't that famous, but there's a more famous place near it called Inuyama, which has a big castle. So I lived out there for a little while, and then after that, I moved to, where did I move after? I moved to Gunma after that. And then to Tokyo, and now I'm in Kawasaki.
All right. Oh, well, all right. You've been moving around quite a bit.
Yeah.
And so what was it like to teach English? I read in your blog this week some of your comments about that, but how did it start out?
I was very bad at it to begin with, and I actually lost a few students for the school I was at, and it was quite a stressful time. I wasn't a trained teacher. I was just a native speaker, you see. And when I came, I just taught in a very one-way sort of a way. I just talk at the students, and it took me a while to learn that you need to engage with them in an interesting way and make funny comments and smile at the kids and basic stuff like that. But I got pretty good at it after a while, and I think I'm a decent teacher now. I still have one private student that I teach sometimes in the evenings, and that's been going on
great.
for 3 years. Yeah.
Good. But no, I remember you told me before. You've done many other things here, like for example,
Yeah.
you had a sales position, right, for a market research company.
Well, yeah, I had a sales position for a market research reseller. We didn't produce any market research ourselves. We were a reseller. I also wrote some of the exam questions for ACAN. Yeah, that would be going back about 15 years now. I've done translation of things like real estate contracts. I've done a very small amount of interpretation. I've done proofreading for some publishing companies, which is still ongoing now. Yeah.
Okay, so you've been busy here.
Yeah.
However, I certainly got the drift in your blog that you're not a big fan of Japanese offices.
Yeah, I should qualify that a little bit because most of my office experience is in Japan. So when I moan about offices, I'm mostly moaning about the experience being in Japan and working in an office. I did work briefly in an office when I was in the UK and we had cubicles. But aside from that, it was kind of the same physical layout. It was open plan, but there was a bit more privacy. The typical Japanese office, I think, there's a rigid hierarchical structure, and you're not too encouraged to give your opinions, which can be a little bit stifling. Sorry, Japan. And also, it's very, very open plan. Like I think that my blog might be getting a bit repetitive on this point, but they have these islands of desks, and then your boss is sitting at the end of the desk, and you can kind of see this person's head floating in your peripheral vision, and they can always cheer, and you have to turn to look at them. And it sort of doesn't feel fair somehow. And I did it for 10 years actually, and I got more and more stressed out, and in the end, I just sort of cracked.
Yeah. So, in other words, this was like the feeling of Big Brother constantly looking down on you?
A little bit like that. I would have liked a couple of days a week working from home just to break that up.
Okay. Now, one other thing that you told me you did, though, was you were administrator for a recruitment company serving nursing homes.
Yeah. Yeah,
Was that in it?
Was very briefly for about 6 weeks. And I wrote in my blog about this. This part 14, I think, in my blog, if you want to go back, you can see the exciting reasons why I walked out in the middle of the day there. I won't repeat them on this podcast, but yeah, if you go back to part 14 of my blog, I did write in quite explicit detail why I felt the need to leave partway through a day, which is something I've never done at a job before, but
well, we'll go back to that. Now, of course, I'm teeing up one thing, which is what you're currently doing in terms of putting bread on the table, which is you are now cleaning train stations in Japan.
Yes.
So working manual labor, nikitai rodo.
Yes.
In Japanese.
Yeah.
So what now? I suppose that entails exactly what it means, but what exactly do you need to do when you clean a train station?
I'm trying to think of the least boring way to put this. The short answer is we clean the train station, I suppose. But that's just sweeping, wiping, and that's sort of it. Emptying. They have the vending machines for drinks on the platform station, and there's a cabinet where all the bottles and cans go in, and you open the cabinet with a key, and you take it out, and then you lug it to a little depository that's just outside the station and dump it in there. It's not that interesting, and it's actually quite easy, but that's why I like it, mostly because you're unsupervised. You can walk around, you can take breaks if you want, but yeah, it is very physically demanding, I would say, especially in the heat.
And also, I mean, right now I live down in Kyushu, so don't need to take the train too much. But I used to live in the middle of Tokyo, and near the station where I lived every morning, where there were a lot of bars and things, there's a lot to clean up. Let's put it this way. I mean, there must be some rather unappealing parts of this job, though.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is a more interesting thing to talk about, and I'll try to keep it as clean as possible. We don't find many insane things in the station in Japan. Not insane things. Most of the stuff on the station is things like a dropped handkerchief, an abandoned umbrella. Maybe you'll find a surgical mask, and then there's of course all the candy wrappers and things like that, and the odd bottle, and so on. Occasionally, when you go into the toilets, you do find things like soiled underwear in the men's. Yeah, in the men's bathroom. There was a guy that was leaving. Okay, I'll try and keep this as clean as possible. There was actually some guy was leaving us one pair of soiled underwear every day on the windowsill above the toilet, and he did it quite regularly. And you'd go in, you just remove his soiled underwear. But then one day he just stopped, and I just sort of wonder what happened. Whether he got caught, or he ran out of underwear, or he decided he didn't like us, or something. I don't know, but. You find stuff like that, it's nothing too much. Japan's pretty clean. Most Japanese people don't litter very much, but I will say that if it wasn't for the cleaners going around the stations, it would pile up. There's a big station that I go to sometimes, and you go around and you sweep everything up, and you might find 10 to 12 pieces on the platform. But if you come back an hour later, there's another 7 or 8. And if you come back an hour later again, it's sort of grown back. So if no one was cleaning it, it would start to get quite grimy.
Hey, by the way, there's been a lot in the news media about problems with people filming in Japanese bathrooms and train stations. I mean, you must get some odd looks every once in a while.
Yeah, well, actually, I don't get that. I think Japanese people are much more used to foreigners being around than they were 20 years ago. But I do get the occasional double take off one of the commuters who's like, oh, there's a, white, maybe Western guy is doing the cleaning here. But I think Japanese people, reading the news and everything, already have the impression that the Japanese economy is short-staffed across a broad range of industries. So to see that would probably strike them as a natural progression more than something odd. With regards to your question about filming in the bathrooms, I've never actually seen that. Also, funnily enough, I have to go into the women's bathrooms to do the cleaning in there, and we have to announce very loudly, obviously make a voice that we're going in, and put a sign out saying a man is going to be doing this duty at the moment, so that they know. But I've never had any of the women even look at me funny or anything like that. I mean, I don't make eye contact when I go in there, so I don't know. But I've never had anyone say anything to me like, "What are you doing in here?" There have been a couple of reports of guys going into the women's bathrooms, and that's been reported at some of our morning meetings, male commuters going in there and causing a problem. But that's about all I know. That's about all I've heard.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that's all you know about that.
Yeah.
And now, just curious, I mean, you could have done other jobs. I mean, you kind of alluded to this a minute ago, but why are you doing this? One more time. I mean, do you make ends meet by doing this?
All right. So 2 parts to that. First of all, there's a number of factors that drew me to the job. One is that I like being outside, I like being unsupervised, and I wanted to get some exercise. So those are some things. With regards to making ends meet, it's very difficult to make ends meet on that. It's about 1,200 yen an hour. And of course, you get deductions from that, taxes, benefits, and everything you have to pay. So you don't get very much money. So you can't lead a very lavish lifestyle. In my case, I have a trickle of income from other things. But still, it's tough. I think the people that work for this cleaning company are a mixture of people who live alone, who live who economize very aggressively to make it work, and people who live in a household, and there might be other incomes in the household, so they're just contributing a little bit. But
right now you're living on your own, or?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Okay, wow. So that's and how many hours are you allowed to work a day?
The standard day, I think, is about 7.5, 7.75 hours if you deduct lunchtime.
Oh, so
Yeah.
okay, yeah, regular
So I
hours.
work
Okay.
37.5 hours a week, but
Oh,
as I said, it's not so well paid. So I am actually considering moving to something else, especially if I could get a cleaning job that's inside an office building that pays a little bit more per hour. So you might see a new chapter start on the blog. I'm thinking about it. I haven't decided.
and so, well, I mean, one plus side is that leaves quite a bit of time for other activities then, if it's only 37 hours a week.
Yes, because you don't take the job home with you. It's one of the things I found. You do the job and forget it. When I worked in an office, I would often have worries related to that job lurking in the back of my mind while I was trying to enjoy a film or just
Mhm.
lying there on my iPad or something. I'd be thinking, I have to send this email tomorrow. I've got this Zoom call with this company and I might have to be in early because of the time difference and so on and so on. Or you'd have maybe some ongoing, not feud, but friction with someone else in the office because they didn't like some work that you'd done. And you'd be thinking, they'll be there tomorrow, and just standard office stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I got it.
But what-
You would avoid all the office politics and you say goodbye when it's time for when it's the end of your day. Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's liberating to a certain extent, I suppose.
Well, I got my mind is my own is the very important thing. So when I get home, I haven't burnt all my brain cells up during the day making, Excel files and invoices. I come home and my mind's been more or less rested all day, apart from daydreaming. So I can sit down, I can write one of my books, I can polish
Mm,
a screenplay that I've been working on, I
okay.
can write some of the Substack blog and just relax.
Well, all right. That makes it sound very appealing. Hey,
Yeah,
great segue. Next thing is writing. You are an
yeah,
accomplished writer.
yeah.
And what's behind this? When did you begin writing and what motivates you?
At 16, I'm motivated by need to write, really. It's a bit like my brain's excretory system, really. It builds up and I have to write. Otherwise, I feel quite tense. I like inventing stories and different worlds. I wouldn't say I'm accomplished. I'm accomplished insofar as the books actually exist, but I
Oh,
wouldn't say that any of them have ever taken off. I just
yeah.
Kindle and
Okay, but hey, that's a lot more than most of us. And where do you get your inspiration? I mean, literally, are you writing about the train station experience or other
I,
things?
I would love to do that. I would love to write a book about someone that works in a train station, but mostly I write um, a little bit of drama and some comedy,
Hmm.
horror, and sci-fi. So I go around different genres. I usually just bounce off whatever the last one was about and try and do something different. Yeah.
Right. And so, where do you get your the inspiration behind these stories, though?
Oh, well, quite often I'll do something that I think that was a bit goofy or that was a bit daft or um, my character was a bit weird in that situation. Maybe I became too irritable or something. And then I'll just think, well, what if there was a character that was just like that all the time to the nth degree? What would have, and then you have to have a conflict and stakes in a story. You have to have something that the character wants or the character is trying to avoid. And then you dump them into that situation and let it play out. Try and generate as much tension and intrigue as you can. Or I'll see somebody else do something. I think that was a strange thing that they did. What if I built a character around that? So usually it's character first.
Ah, okay. And so, tell us about what you've published so far. What are some examples?
Okay, I published 8 books so far on Kindle. One of them is about some twins that make an app on a phone, a mobile phone app, and basically it allows politicians to fabricate, ostensibly spontaneous meetings with members of the public so they can get photo opportunities in natural settings and then send it out on social media and so on. But unfortunately, stalkers get hold of this app and start hunting down politicians, and it gets the twins into legal trouble, so they have to run away. So there's that's kind of the thriller. I wrote one about a mugger. and he is in debt to a loan shark, but the loan shark's also in debt to the same mob bosses, so they have to rob a banker's house in order to pay them back. And if the mugger can't do this, then his bedridden sister will be targeted by the mob and by all these other shady characters. So that's kind of a thriller as well. And I've also wrote a couple of things about emergent technology and how that might affect our lives. And they examine themes of free will and determinism and things like that. So I try and put some depth to them. But
okay, good. Wow, right, that's a wide range. Hey, I understand you got your latest book is Disease. Is that what it's called?
I wrote that a few years ago. I wrote that during the pandemic, I think, and it's about a company doctor who works for a strange corporation. They're borderline evil, and he tries to pick up his boss's wife at a party in a way that's much too aggressive. And as punishment, they exile him to a distant moon, where they task him with investigating a mysterious outbreak of an illness. But then the colony that he goes to degenerates into this sort of atavistic, fascistic state where he's made as a scapegoat for the disease that's breaking out. So that's called Disease. It's very inspired by William Burroughs. I don't know if you know a short story he wrote, Spare Ass Annie. It's on YouTube, but it was sort of around that.
Yeah, I have seen it.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm curious, others might be curious too. How do you go about publishing on Kindle?
Well, you just upload a Word file. You just drag and drop your Word file in, or you get it from your desktop, and then you just hit publish. And as long as you've got a book cover that fits their specifications for resolution, number of pixels, and so on, it'll go up. The thing about Kindle, I mean, I don't want to talk too much. I don't know what I shouldn't say about Amazon or something, but I do know that once you put Kindle up, or I think that once you put something up on Kindle, you can't then publish it elsewhere, is my understanding.
Oh, okay.
So you've kind of committed it to Kindle once it goes on there. But there are so many books around now. And obviously the traditional, all the legacy publishers that publish in print are struggling. So Kindle is the way forward for a lot of people that just want to get their work out there. But because obviously it's just a flood zone of things that people have written. There are so many romance, fantasy, sci-fi books out there that if you want to sell even a few copies, you're really competing with a lot of other people. So I don't put them up with the expectation that I'm going to wake up one morning and it's going to say 1 million copies sold and you're on the bestseller list. It's a hobby.
Yeah, but that's fascinating. And then, so how do you promote your work then?
Usually through social media, and usually very badly. I don't. I'm not a very outgoing person in terms of self-promotion. I always feel self-conscious. Even if I really believe the book is good, for some reason I have an imposter syndrome and think that I'm scamming people. So I tend to set the prices low, and I tend to say to people, well, read it if you want, and if you don't, then that's cool. But you see a lot of people on the internet who will write a book and then they'll tweet out a promo for it every day, and they'll say, this is the best thing ever, buy it or miss out. I'll send you the link in DM or something. And I'm trying to push myself to be a bit more like that, because the world is very competitive, but I'm quite uncomfortable with self-promotion.
Well, yeah. But do you have other people that help you, or like publish reviews on Goodreads or something like that?
I've had some reviews from friends and family, and I've had some reviews from total strangers that have generally been positive. Another thing I do is I do live readings. I go to a small bar in Shimokitazawa every month, and I read a passage and hand out QR codes that lead to Kindle so that people can scan them and just order them. But
that's cool.
Yeah, to little effect. But that's that. That's the. I mean, the other thing about reading these days is people are so busy. Like, people were always busy with jobs, but I think people are slightly more busy with jobs than they used to be, and you're competing with social media. And people have very fractured attention spans now. Like their mind is saying, go back to Twitter, go back to Instagram and scroll, 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 because they want the dopamine, you know? So
Yeah.
a book
Although,
has the
how
complete...
often do you get a chance to meet a real author and listen to the author read their own work? That's pretty special.
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, I don't know if the people listening think it's good, for one thing. They might be thinking, I hope this guy finishes so that I can listen to the next person. But like I said, there are a lot of people writing because it's been democratized now. You can publish on Kindle. It's not just Kindle, there's a bunch of platforms that you can write something and just upload online, and now it's publicly available. And we didn't used to have that, you know.
Well, that's
We
true.
have traditional publishing houses, so there are so many people writing.
All right. Well, hey, I want to talk next about screenwriting, but before we do that, we need to help you with the promotion here.
Okay.
Which bar is this in Shimokitazawa where you do the reading?
Oh, right. This is a great bar, and I'd like to promote it generally. It's called GariGari. GariGari. It's brilliant. It's got a great atmosphere. It's run by this B-movie maniac, and he's got things like facehugger props from the Alien films on the ceiling, and all these old kind of grindhouse film posters are all over the walls, like wallpaper. It's a great bar. So
okay, that sounds good. We'll put a link to the address at least in the write-up for today. Terrific. Okay. All right, I gotta ask you. You have a horror movie in production, right?
Yes.
Okay, without giving away too much.
Yeah.
What's it about?
All right. I can't really say very much about it because the production company would like to keep it under wraps. We're hoping to go into production at the beginning of October, pre-production at the end of September. Almost have enough money in the budget now to actually get it made. I'll try and tell you a bit about what it is without going into it too much, but it's about a young man who finds himself captured in an extremely stressful situation by somebody of means with a lot of money behind them who enjoys torturing people, basically, and he has to escape from that situation along with the other people who've been captured by this rich entrepreneur. So yeah, I mean, it sounds extremely nasty, and the premise is nasty, and there's mostly a threat of violence looming over the film, but I'm not a big fan of sustained and gratuitous violence in films just for no reason. I think it works as a threat to build tension. So some people might say, "Oh, is this like a Saw film or something?" Or like The Collector or something like that, where people are just gratuitously hurt over and over again. And there's elements of that, but it doesn't go over the line. So it's a kind of a splatter, grindhouse torture style horror film, but without going too far.
So as the actual screenwriter, how do you work? Is there a director and obviously a producer? Or how do you work with the other people that are actually making the film?
Well, my only point of contact at the moment is the producer, who's now sorting everything out, because there's a geographical disconnect there. I'm in Japan and they're over in California. So it's quite difficult for me to get hands on anyway. So anyway, it wouldn't be the screenwriter that picks that does the casting or set design or direct or chooses a director. So that's kind of being dealt with, and I'm just being asked to do rewrites.
Rewrite. Okay.
Yeah, so maybe change the name of characters or add a scene or take away a scene.
Well, that's how this works. Okay. Well, it's so that you're being asked to do a rewrite in the middle of production, or they haven't actually started filming process?
We haven't even started pre-production yet. So this is all preparation for pre-production. So I mean, basically, I get an order and I'm just like, I'll do what I'm told. I'm not very precious about what I've written. If they say, "Could you change it?" Fine.
You're easy.
Might be a film.
And all right, how does one even sell a screenplay? I mean, how did you get to this point?
I was very, very lucky. I just sent it to the production company. I had a mutual friend with someone in the production company, and I sent it, and that person read it, and got into it from the first few pages, ended up reading all of it, and then said, well, I'll option this. You know what option is, I suppose, just for anyone listening who doesn't know about the process, is that the production company would pay you a fee to, what's the word? Just to have like control over it for a couple of years. So you can't sell it to someone else that couple of years, just to kind of keep it. So I fee for them having ownership of it and the exclusive rights to produce it for 2 years. If they don't make it within that 2 years, it reverts to me and I could option it to someone else after that.
Interesting. And so what is the process? You're before pre-production. So what are the steps to actually making a movie?
All right. Well, I don't have a huge amount of knowledge, so I'll just say what my understanding is. And someone listening to this might think, he's got it completely wrong. But obviously, you have the project in place first. You have someone's written a script, a production company likes it, and they've optioned it, and they decide that they would like to move in the direction of making it. And then after that, I think it's raising a budget, which would be maybe another production company might want to come in on it and provide some of the budget, or maybe some private investors, some rich bankers or lawyers or CEOs might want to throw in and get their name on the credits. So once you've got the money together, then you start pre-production. And that would be things like set design, location scouting, casting, importantly, getting a director. What state are you going to shoot it in? What tax breaks do you get in what state? Those are things that you have to look up because it's easier to shoot in some states than others. There's location permits, and some states are easier than others, and on and on and on. And if you wanted to use animals, you might have to get coordinator for that to make sure that there's no animal cruelty, and et cetera, special effects artists. So anyway, everything's in place. You shoot your film, you go into post-production, and it's edited, and things like color grading and all that is sorted out. And then after that, I'm a bit murky on what happens after that, but my understanding is that you might show it at some festivals and try and get a distributor, because the production company sometimes doesn't distribute the film. So you might try and get someone interested in, paying the money, investing the money and distributing it. And then the distributor, as well as the cinema, the theater, gets a cut of the profits. So that's how I understand the film industry to work.
What about what if it goes right to streaming?
I think sometimes people show things at festivals and it goes down well, and then someone from a streaming service, like Netflix or Shudder or something, is there, and they say this is good and we'll give you a certain amount for it, and then they negotiate, and it could go straight to streaming. I think that's another.
That's exciting. So if all goes smoothly, which I'm sure there might be a few challenges along the way, but let's assume everything goes smoothly. What's the approximate timeline before we might actually see this?
Well, that after it's made and after it's been shown at festivals, sometimes films can languish for a very, very long time before they come out, and sometimes they could come out a couple of months later. So, do you know an old trauma film called The Toxic Avenger?
That I don't know. Sounds good.
Okay, well, there's a film called The Toxic Avenger that was remade recently, and I think it had, who was it? I think Elijah Wood's in it. Kevin Bacon's in it, I think. I know anyway. So even though Kevin Bacon's in this film, it was shown at some festivals and it got quite a good reception. And then it just sort of disappeared off the map and it didn't come out. And only now, maybe 2 years later, I think it's getting a limited theatrical release and might find its way to streaming. So this is a film with a big name in it. It's a remake of a fairly well-known 1980s B-movie property, and it's still struggling to see the light of day after it'd been made and finished. I think it was directed by Macon Blair, who's had a few successful films before as well. He's like a cult film director, and still nobody. I don't know if it was just distributors weren't interested or if there was a legal issue, but it can take a while after the film's been made for it to come out.
Okay. Well, James, but I got to tell you, this is literally out of a movie. You literally just sent your script in and they liked it. So that's a good sign. We'll cross our fingers that you're going to get your movie out sooner rather than later.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's a good script.
Good. And is it like a prequel, or does it have the potential to be a series?
It has the potential to be a series. It's set up at the end in a way that you could easily put a sequel there, but it wasn't written specifically to have a sequel because, I think with horror film, sequels are fine. I think with other things, they can be a bit tacky. It really depends what you're doing. Depends.
Okay, wow, that's very interesting. Well, I absolutely can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, we'll read your other 8 books.
Yes.
That's great. And do you have any new projects underway while you're cleaning away at the stations? Are you contemplating many other new plot twists and other ideas?
Yeah, I daydream a little bit about it, but mostly I plan all of my books in advance. I buy a new notebook and I sit down, I write what's going to happen at what point, and then I follow that rough outline because I want it to be tightly controlled. Yeah.
Oh, interesting writing process. And now, were you formally trained at any point to do this?
No. I just writing is like, I can't remember who said this. I think it was William Burroughs or Hubert Selby Jr. I can't remember, but someone said that, I think it was Burroughs. He said that writing is a bit like dancing. If you want to get better at dancing, you just do lots of it, and then you get better. And Selby Jr. said something similar. He said that he didn't really have any skills, but he did know the alphabet. So he got a typewriter, and he typed, and he said wasn't very good at first, but then he just kept going and going and going. So I look back at some stuff I wrote years ago, and I think, this really needs a chainsaw taken to it. There are just adjectives everywhere. Every noun's got an adjective on it. There's too many long sentences. There's stuff that doesn't need to be there. And then I compare it to stuff I wrote recently, and it's tighter, more disciplined. It's got a consistent cadence. It's got more plot, better, clearly defined stakes. I'm not saying I'm a good writer, but I'm saying that that's compared to my old stuff. So it's practice. Anyone can write. You just need to know the alphabet.
It sounds like you're very humble, which is good. But it also sounds like you've seriously improved your writing ability, which is terrific. And now, are you incorporating stories about Japan into some of these, either books or screenwriting projects?
I never have, because for me, writing is an act of escapism. I might do one day, but I write to get away from reality. And I mean, at some point, I might write a book about someone that worked in a train station, but I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure I will. I like to escape from reality in the writing. I like fantastical situations and crazy characters and weird technology and stuff. And, this job I'm doing at the moment is to keep my savings from going down, to be honest. Yeah. And to get exercise and to not be constantly watched, I think.
Yeah, I understand. Hey, just aside on the trains, that made me think of something. The Japanese term densha otaku. So, someone who's really into trains. Is your station, or maybe you cover multiple stations, do you have densha otaku there?
Every now and again you see them, but not as many as you'd think. That you see guys, they've got the long selfie stick and they've got I think they're taking pictures of the trains. Amusingly, I think it might have been someone in the UK somewhere, posted on social media that they work at a train station, and every now and again they have a vacancy, a job vacancy, and they're interviewing people, and some of these train geeks turn up and they say they always are very careful to avoid hiring because if they I don't know why. I think I could kind of guess. Maybe they get disappointed by the reality once they're there and they quit, or maybe they just want to talk about trains too much. I'm not sure that people that work at train companies are train geeks. Not to denigrate people who are interested in trains. If you're interested in a hobby, it's a good hobby. If someone's fascinated by something, it is fascinating by definition. So I can't say it's boring.
Well, just listening to you and also looking at some of the comments here, which you'll have to scroll through while we're talking. I know it's a lot to do while we have to do everything through our mobile phones only. They don't allow you to do this on the But anyway, thank you for all the participant and also the comments here. Don't forget to mention that you're also optioned a screenplay to be produced in Hollywood. Well, I think we've covered that. That's great. I want a book signing. Yes. Aha. There's a good idea. I guess you can go back to the bar. Do you do that while you're reading your work in Shimokitazawa? Do you sign books?
It's all digital. It's all on Kindle. But I'm thinking of next book I do. I could just sign the surface of your iPad if you don't mind that. But no, I'm thinking of having some printed up for my next book. Like I said, when you put something on Kindle, I don't think you can sell it and, not like make much money, but make money from it elsewhere. So I'm thinking of just getting promotional copies printed up and then saying to people in the bar, if you download it on Kindle now, I'll give you this paper copy for free so that you can read it. Without, because people like to have a book in their hands. I like to have a book in my hands. I like to have a DVD instead of a streaming account. I like physical media.
Yeah, well, me too. Hey, you probably noticed this, and thank you for all the comments and questions. They're coming fast and furious here. Fellow writer on Substack has asked a question. Interesting to hear about rewrites.
Yeah.
Well, what's an example in your screenplay? Have you been asked to add more violence to help sell it? Yeah, well, you described a little bit of it, but maybe there's another example of that.
No, I haven't been asked to add more violence. I've been asked to change character names or, make one character from male to female, for example, because in some states where you shoot, you do get a tax break for hitting a diversity quota. So if you just have more, say, women, I mean, this is just the way it works. If you have, say, more shooting days for actresses, female actors, and you hit a certain quota, you might get a bigger tax break and things like that. And I think in the case of my script, it was very, very close to being just diverse enough already that I think the producers saw that and were like, well, just one more person and we could probably get, something % off. So
that's fascinating. I would never have thought of that. Hey, somebody else commented it might be easier to film in Canada, like Vancouver. I guess a lot of films are made there. Like Shogun mentions was filmed there. Do you have any indication whether the film is already being planned to be produced or actually shot in America or in Canada or some other place?
And possibly it could be easier to film it in Canada, but that's not up to me, unfortunately. I think it's going to be out in the United States, but I think I'll leave it at that because I was asked to sort of keep things quite vague. Yeah. Not that you'd be able to find out what the film was from me saying the state, but just, in service to my own paranoia, I'll just leave it at that, maybe.
Well, no, let's not get you in trouble with that. You've gotten this far. Let's make sure you get to the finish line here. That's great. Okay. Well, other comments, all sorts of things. That's great. James could say that he has over 10,000 hours of writing experience. Wow. Well, do you have 10,000 hours of writing experience, or have you ever actually measured that?
I doubt it because I looked on, I don't know about PCs, but on the iMac, when you go into a Word file, you can see how much time you spent with that file open. And recently I did that with one of my books, and it said something like it took me 150 hours to write it or something. And I've probably written maybe at the most 12 books in my life. So I don't think that would add up to 10,000 hours.
Okay, but that's a very logical way of figuring that out. It sounds like a pretty large number to reach, but okay. Well, you're on your way.
2,000 or 3,000. I mean, but if you think about that, that's quite a lot. I mean, that's like 10 weeks of pure writing I'm 46, so maybe 10 weeks of my life I've spent at a keyboard writing, which is a fifth of 1 year.
Well, given the fact that you really only have to work only under 38 hours a week, that still frees up a lot of time. We have a fantastic suggestion for you. A train station book signing, a business card and a QR code. That's a good idea.
Yeah, in my private time, I suppose I could I could go there. I don't know if anyone would pay me the slightest attention, because for the simple reason that most of the people passing through would be Japanese and my books are in English. So unless I got some sort of a Japanese translation and then did it. But I think that you do need a permit to do any sort of commercial activity in a public space in Japan. I think maybe if I went to one of those literature festivals or markets and I had a stall and I paid and that translated it into Japanese, had English versions available as well, and there was a big kind of, cardboard train behind me or something like that would be.
Okay, well, that's a good idea. And hey, the same fellow writer also had. Oh, good suggestion. By the way, you can do on-demand printing via Amazon. Oh,
thank you for that. I didn't know that. I haven't been very diligent in looking at what they can do, but yeah, I'll have a look at that. I do want paper copies because people keep saying to me, I sometimes print them out on A4, and if I've got a friend and they want to read it, I'll just give it to them. I'm not interested in making money from it as much as I am people reading it. So I'll just give people, I'll just print it out and lend it to them sometimes.
And okay, well, you're very generous, but that sounds terrific. Here's another great question. James, if you had to choose between Willem Dafoe or Christopher Walken to star in your film, who'd it be?
Walken.
Oh, okay. Why?
Well, it depends. Christopher Walken is a very idiosyncratic person in terms of how he speaks and acts, apart from the way that he performs in a film. So, if the character was the sort of character that would fit, then I would like Walken because of his screen presence is crazy. He just eats everything up, and he's such a popular actor that people would watch it. But yeah, I think Dafoe, maybe if it was something that I didn't want the actor to kind of distract from as much. It's like Nicolas Cage or Walken or some of these people, you put them in roles where you don't mind if people are distracted by the fact that it's them, they're the draw. But I think if you're trying to build a story that you didn't want people to be distracted, give them a bit part, or maybe choose somebody that's a bit more kind of, muted, I suppose. But
now, when you're actually writing for the movie, so as a screenwriter, are you thinking about who you would want ideally as to play each role, or not so much?
Not while I'm writing, but afterwards. So there's a villain now in my book, and there's a specific actor I can't say, but there's a specific actor that I really want to be in it. There's 2 or 3 directors that I would love to direct this film as well, but I won't say as well. I've been asked to say like specific names because producer is talking about actually reaching out to some of these people, and then if I say it on this, and then they come, it's like I leak the information. So. But I think we'd be lucky to get any of the people I'm thinking of.
Wow, it sounds like you have the potential to be asked to write a specific movie.
I've got other films as well. I've got like a good cannibal one, and I've got one about a music festival that goes badly wrong with people taking all kinds of substances, and I've got a few, and I'm hoping that if this gets made, it'll be easier to option the other ones.
Absolutely, that's good. Speaking of that, we have another comment. Torture flick must be in Idaho. Okay.
Oh, right. I don't know anything about Idaho at all. But anywhere that would allow us to shoot and the film would look good, I'd be happy with.
Yeah, it might be Idaho. Okay, good.
Yeah,
hey, here's another one. You'll soon have 9 books written and 10 by the end of the year.
Yeah.
Can you mention your latest book?
Yeah, my new book. I don't know if it's going to go into print or onto Kindle, but it's called List of Goals, and it's about a sociopath who makes a list of things he would like to do. And the things he would like to do invariably involve destroying the lives of the people around him in some way. And the goals get bolder and bolder until they reach a kind of logical crescendo. It's about a very cold, sort of psychologically terrifying man who would like to cause as much harm as he can to the people around him, so long as he can get away with it. And the film isn't gory, it isn't too nasty in terms of visuals, but it's just going into this character psychology is quite frightening. And I do feel it's taken me a while to write because it's made me feel quite rotten and I want to get away from it now. But there's a market for that sort of dark literature. You got like Filth by Irving Welsh, American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis, which I'm not as into as I was when I was an edgy teenager. And there's a lot of books like that. Hubert Selby Jr., who I love.
And now, none of these, of course, are self-biographical, right?
No, I've been in prison.
Very good. All right. Well, we have another question for you about actors, male actors. So, Tom Hardy or Cumberbatch?
Hardy.
Ooh, that was fast.
But for almost any role, Tom Hardy is fantastic. If you look at The Revenant, which I think he was even better than DiCaprio in that. You look at Bronson, he was great in that. I think he's a very believable, versatile actor. Mad Max. So, and the screen presence is there, and it's not distracting that it's him because he's so versatile. So I think Tom Hardy's very talented.
Okay, here's another question. You're coming fast and furious here.
Yeah.
Back about on the question about having an actor that might be so popular that it almost distracts. Says here, so kind of like having Denzel Washington in Gladiator II distracting in the best way. Or I guess that's a positive in that case. Well, what's your take on, for example, Denzel Washington in that movie?
The saving grace of that film, if you ask me. Almost everything surrounding him was direct. I went to the cinema with my dad to see it. That's when I went there, the demographic was interesting. It was all like silver-haired older guys, Gen Xers and stuff. People who remember the original Gladiator, which is a masterpiece. And we all came with high expectations and low expectations at the same time, probably, and watched it. And every time Denzel Washington came on the screen, my interest went up. And then it sort of plunged again.
Well, all right. You are not mincing your words. That makes perfect sense.
Ridley Scott's one of my favorite directors. I think he's made some of the greatest films ever. My suspicion is that Ridley Scott is making films to stay busy. And, he's quite old now. And I think he's doing it out of enjoyment and to stay busy. And I think he enjoys visuals. I don't think that he's trying to live up to Blade Runner, Alien, The Martian, Gladiator, all great films. I think, it's just having fun. And that's fine. It wasn't I wasn't bored, but that's faint praise.
All right. Wow. Terrific. Yeah. Okay, let's change gears, even though this has been a fascinating topic. Yeah. And we'll have to do this again once the movie comes out.
Yeah, anytime.
You are aspiring to buy an akiya, an abandoned home, and refurbish it. Okay, what's behind that thinking?
I don't want to pay rent. So you could pay between 40,000 and 80,000. I think most people pay rent for a flat in Japan, depending on where you are and how big it is and all the rest of it. You could buy an empty house out in the countryside in a somewhat inconvenient location for maybe 2 or 3 million yen. And then all you'd have to pay is the fixed property tax and, your standard utility fees after that. So you would save, I think it would pay for itself in a few years. And fixed property tax is very low on a house that only costs, say, 3 million yen.
Okay. Right. Well, that's great. Well, as you know, we had on the show not too long ago, Ellen Lindskog, who actually bought an old home, refurbished it with his wife, and now he's running an Airbnb there. It's a very large one. But you can go kind of try the experience out, I bet, since he's listening right now. Wow. And it looks like he's enjoying it too. Yeah. You could check out what it's like and ask him all sorts of questions because it's a little more difficult than you might think to refurbish everything, but he would give you down, load on that. Also, where are you thinking about living?
Chiba or Kanagawa are my first choices. Tokyo, Tokyo, akiya, empty houses are... Ones in Tokyo Prefecture can be a bit pricey, even though they're standing empty and they need doing up. My research has shown that they can be a little bit more pricey, whereas there's some very reasonable properties in Chiba and Kanagawa.
Okay,
So,
well, that sounds good. And is the main objective, though, to not just save on rent, but also have a place where you can write freely and
right.
decorate as you want? Okay.
And have a cat. I would like to have a cat, and you can't have a cat. Even if I was allowed to have one in the place I'm staying at now, it's small enough that it would be cruel to keep one inside. I'd like to have an indoor cat. I don't really want to let the cat run around outside. There's traffic and whatnot. So I'd like to have an indoor cat. So I'd like to get as big a property as possible, and then I can have
Okay.
pets. That's another goal.
Oh, well, all right. This is very clear. We have a comment here from another writer. For 3 million yen, keep umbrellas for all the leaks inside. Okay, well,
Well,
you might need
I'm
to
planning
adjust.
on buying a 2 million yen one and spending 1 million yen on umbrellas. I think that's probably what I'll do.
Okay.
Just, yeah.
And by the way, our next couple of guests actually are
Yeah.
running I haven't even announced this yet, but they are running a real estate firm essentially
Yeah.
in the northern part of Japan,
Yeah.
focused on properties, akiya properties
Yeah.
in and around ski resorts. So that's
Okay.
another option. I think you could find one for cats too. Oh,
Yeah.
and yes, as questions are coming in on the chat here, maybe Kominka, which is the writer that runs Alan Lynn's Group, can help with this. How would you
Yeah.
retrofit your IKEA for earthquakes? Okay, well, that's a whole nother subject. Let's let
Yeah.
them
But he knows
deal
better than
on
I
that.
do. So he's already answered that in the chat. He knows much more than I do at the moment.
All right. Well, in any case, good luck with all of that. And
Yeah.
so, while you're looking for a new place to live, is the plan to continue working for the trains company?
Well, it's actually a month-to-month contract there. So they
Oh,
offer you a contract at the end of every month for the following month, and you can choose to sign it or not. So it's not the most stable employment. If they decide they don't want me for some reason, it's very easy for them to revoke employment rather than, you wouldn't call that firing someone, just elect not to continue. And, given that it's very hot and physically demanding and the pay is quite low per hour, in all honesty, if I see something that's, maybe cleaning air conditioned office buildings or something like that with similar benefits and hours, I might move across to something else. But I
okay.
think, more broadly speaking, I'll probably continue cleaning for a little while.
All
I
right. Well,
know where life is taking me, to be honest.
James, I mean, frankly, of course we want you to pay your rent and hopefully
Yeah.
pay for the down payment on the new home, but I'd rather that you spend all your time writing. I bet a lot of our listeners would too.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time writing. Usually I'll write 1,000 words of something every day. It could be the Substack, it might be screenplay or a novel or something. But yeah, I
Terrific.
write a lot. Yeah.
By the way, we have gone really quickly through this interview and getting very positive comments from people listening. So that's terrific.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Since it's almost up to our hour here, I just have
Yeah.
a couple of questions for you. Like fellow foreigners working and living here in Japan, like the two of us, what do you see as an outlook for them? Um, any
Yeah.
advice, for example?
Um, my advice is that if you come to Japan, learn the language, not just a few phrases to get by, but get it, deep in your mind, speak it every day, try and think in Japanese, because understanding the language is really the key to understanding Japan, I think. And also the culture, obey local cultural norms,
Mm.
to be accepted, speak, be polite and everything like that. And then Japanese people, in my experience, will accept you 100%. I don't think that there is discrimination in this country, at least not, I haven't experienced it. I don't know what discrimination may or may not exist in what situations against other demographics of people. So I can't speak anything about that. But personally, I found that the more I learn the language and the more I learn the local customs, the more situations I was in where I was just more automatically accepted. And, you know,
Mhm.
so learn the language and learn the culture basically, and then the job will come, I think.
Okay, well, that's good advice. I
Right.
would agree. Um, Well, first of all, thank you so much for this hour conversation. It has been a lot of fun. Also, thank you to all of our listeners. We had quite a few and terrific participation via the chat with both comments that are by and large quite positive and also some great questions. So thank you so much. James, you want to close it out by just giving everyone who's still online final message?
Yeah, thanks for watching. I'm just really grateful that people were, willing to listen for for an hour, most of you for the best part of an hour. And thanks. I mean, have a look at my Substack if you're interested, and of course, comment and drop your own Substack on any of my posts so that I can see what you're up to as well, because that's what Substack's about. I think is that we're all looking at each other's ideas, and I'm really interested in reading things by people who would want to hear from me as well. So, yeah,
Well,
and also take care in the heat, I would say as well.
That's right. From somebody working outside. Well, you too.
Yeah.
Watch out for heat strokes. But that is great. As a write-up, give me about 24 hours to go to get this done. But we will have the recording out. And as part of the recording, I'll put some links to that bar in Shimokitazawa, your Substack, and how to get in touch. And also, if there are any, well, I guess on Kindle, we can link to that too. And
appreciate
good luck. Our fingers are crossed for success with your latest endeavor in Hollywood.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see the movie.
Thanks very much. And I do hope that your podcast grows. Becomes massive.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the support. All right, everyone. We'll say goodbye for now, but tune in coming up for the next interview in about a week or so. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mark. Goodbye.
Okay. Bye. Thank you.
Thanks for watching and or listening to another story from the Read My Lips series of podcasts on Real Gaijin. Tell us what you think and be sure to tune in again next time.